Visitor today who is so sorry about my noisy daughter. We are supposed to have Bernard Fischer on today, but unfortunately he hasn't been able to make it. It is actually quite late. He is in the US, so it is quite late at night in the US, and he's had something come up. So I'm going to do the talk today for you instead. I have actually been doing some work with Bernie on virtual tourism. So I'm going to give you an insight into that. I'll just talk you through some of the areas that I've been working on, some of the areas of research that I've been working on. So what is virtual tourism? Well, virtual tourism is, it is something that we've all heard of actually, I think, during the pandemic time, because virtual tourism has in many places replaced physical tourism, because obviously we have been restricted from traveling in the way that we usually would. So virtual tourism has allowed us to see places and see destinations and experience them to a certain extent without physically having to go there. Now, a lot of people assume that as widespread travel begins to resume again, virtual tourism will decrease and it won't be so popular. But actually, virtual tourism, regardless of the pandemic, has been growing for some years, and there is definitely a place for virtual tourism in the travel process. The place for it is not a replacement for physical travel, which is what's been happening during this pandemic, but the place for it actually is pre-travel and post-travel. And there are different ways that we can do this. So I do actually have an article that I wrote about this that I am going to share with you right here. I'll just post that link there. Hopefully that will come up. So I do have an article that I've written about virtual tourism that comes up on Google. If you Google virtual tourism, I should be one of the top hits. And in that article, I am quite comprehensive about what is virtual tourism, why do we have virtual tourism? And one of the sections within that, I do actually talk about the different types of virtual tourism. So I'm just going to scroll down. I've got lots and lots of detail here about the growth of virtual tourism and how it's grown. So anyway, I'll let you read that for yourself if you are interested, because I think virtual tourism is a very interesting, it is an interesting part of the tourism industry, and it is going to grow. So we have different types of virtual tourism. There is the try before you buy. So when I said that there is a place for virtual tourism in the travel process, one of the places that might be is beforehand. So a lot of people will spend time doing their research, looking into, do I want to go to that place? Do I want to visit those things? Is that going to be something that appeals to me or not? So by having virtual tours, this gives you the ability to try before you buy, to have a look and see, actually, yeah, this does take my fancy, or no, perhaps that's not for me. And these come in different shapes and sizes. You know, you could do a tele tour, which is perhaps a guide. It could be live or it could be pre-recorded, a guide that might be talking you through on YouTube or Zoom or something like that. Or do some kind of like an organized tour that is on some kind of gaming software. And this is less common, but this is something that's growing. So there are different applications and software programs that you can use, and these will often allow you to walk or move around the tourist attraction in your own time, in your own space, to explore. They'll often have lots of little bits of information for you and things. And actually there are lots of innovative ways that we can explore and use virtual tourism within the tourism industry that can help not to replace travel, but to complement it. And as a sort of pre-travel experience, that's a great example of that. Virtual tourism also allows you to visit real places without leaving your home, without leaving your sofa. So there are obviously benefits to that in terms of the environment, in terms of it's much more cost effective, but you know, virtual travel is never going to replace physical travel. However, there are some places that you just might not be able to feasibly visit. These could be because you don't have the time off work. It could be because they are too expensive. It could be because they are in difficult to reach locations. So virtual tourism is a great way to enable people to access destinations that they wouldn't otherwise be able to reach. And one of the things that I love about virtual tourism is that there are lots of innovative ways and programs and things coming out. And one of them is that it enables us to time travel. So we can essentially visit places of the past through virtual tourism. So we can go back to ancient Rome and see those monuments and those structures in their full glory as they were, during that era. We can go back to Egypt and see how the pyramids and all the buildings around them and the infrastructure surrounding them would have looked. And there are lots more examples. And whilst these types of virtual tours are not abundant at the moment, I know that there are lots that are in development. And one of those is the company that I have been doing a little bit of work with, Flyover Zone. And that's what the company that Bernard Fischer runs, and he's founded that company. And one of the things that they do is they create tours and allow you to do that time travel. And I think that's absolutely fantastic. And it's great in terms of education, but it's also great in terms of just being able to experience something that you wouldn't otherwise be able to experience. So it's another type of virtual tourism. As I mentioned before, you can visit areas that are inaccessible. Maybe you can go to the top of a mountain. Maybe you can go to the depths of a jungle. All of these things are easily accessible virtually once they've been created, but they're not so accessible often physically. So having virtual tourism opens us up to so many different opportunities. And we can also visit areas that actually don't exist at all. So this type of virtual tourism is one that is yet to really take off, but it might do. And there are platforms such as Second Life, which you might have heard of. It's a well-known platform that offers this type of virtual tourism. So effectively, it's an online world in which you are able to create a visual representation of yourself, which is called an avatar, and you connect with various places and various people. So you can go to places and develop places and explore places that don't actually exist at all. But that is a form of virtual tourism. Virtual tourism doesn't have to be based on places that are real. It can be places that are mythical or that are adapted or whatever. So there are so many opportunities, and I think it is really exciting. So let's move on to my next question. So what is digital archaeology? So I'm sure I will not give you as good an explanation as Bernard would have, but he is essentially a digital archaeologist. And this is something that a lot of people haven't actually heard of. So digital archaeology is all about reconstructing ancient monuments and archaeological elements, etc. And you can put them into a digital space. So this is really one of the main way that we are able to access that type of virtual tourism that I mentioned to you, where you can look at tourist attractions in the way that they once were. And it's impossible for us to go and see those tourist attractions in that state now. Yes, there are, in some places in the world, they have reconstructed tourist attractions, or they have made sort of mimicking versions, etc. But really, this is something that's inaccessible. So virtually, one of the things that Flyover has done, and they are really one of the pioneering organizations in the virtual tourism space, one of the things that they have done is to use their team of archaeologists and IT and technology experts, and they have taken their physical knowledge of the archaeology of these buildings and the infrastructure of these buildings, and they've created that digitally for people to enjoy. And I think that's absolutely brilliant. It's an innovation of virtual tourism. And, before the pandemic, a lot of people were not necessarily familiar with the concept of virtual tourism. They'd probably heard of it, but not thought so much about it. Most people, I think, have heard of it now. because we've had this big move towards virtual, because so many things have gone online in the last year, but the thing is that a lot of organizations who would usually be undertaking some kind of physical tourism, so travel agents, tour operators, tourist attractions, etc., have moved their operations online. And what this means is that they are doing like a temporary kind of move online, and they are taking the opportunity to try and keep their business going during this difficult time when they can't have their usual physical travel and their usual operations there. So what we have is lots of people and lots of organizations who have kind of jumped on the bandwagon, so to speak, and they have tried to embrace virtual tourism, and some are doing it very well, but a lot of people and organizations are just simply walking people around doing video tours, and that's great, and there are lots of good things about that. But actually the serious players, the ones who are going to stay in the virtual tourism space and the ones who are going to expand and grow, are the ones who are doing things that are a little bit more innovative, that are a little bit more special. Over the last year, we've had so many video calls and this kind of thing online, and to us that's not so special anymore, because it's everywhere. Whereas if you can create a time travel virtually, that's something different, that is special. So this is something that's new, it's upcoming. Flyover Zone do have a few different tours, so you can have a look on their website. I'll get the website up for you actually, and I'll post the link. Bear with me a second. So they've got some great tours, and they are building new tours as well at the moment. So there's lots going on there, and I think that's quite exciting. Bring it back up. So this is great for people who are interested in tourism and for leisure purposes, but it's also brilliant in terms of education and students who might be learning about different tourist attractions or the history in that area, or educational tourism, people who want to learn about tourist attractions and the history behind it, etc. So I think it's really great, and do have a look at their website and what they have on offer. So how has the virtual tourism industry responded to the COVID pandemic? I think I pretty much have already covered that, actually. So virtual tourism has replaced physical tourism in many ways, and many people are thinking that is what virtual tourism is, but I'm here to tell you today it's actually more than that, far more than that. So it will have a place going forward, and it will grow. And I mentioned about this try before you buy sort of thing that you can do, but there's also a post travel virtual tourism. Oh, I'm so sorry. It's quite early in the morning here in China. So yeah, there's also a post option. So you might go on an amazing trip, you have the best time, you want to come back and you want to tell your grandma about it or your best friend about it or whatever. And yes, you can show them pictures. Yes, you can tell them where you've been going, what you've been doing. But actually, one of the great things you can do as well is to take them virtually to the place that you've been and show them the things that you've seen. So there is definitely a place for virtual tourism there. And for those of you who tuned in last week to my talk with Philippe on experiential travel, if you haven't seen that, it's a really interesting one. For those of you who missed it, he was talking about his company, Secret Trips, I think. He was talking about it, how he's using virtual tourism as well. And he was saying, obviously, at the moment, you can't do a lot of physical trips. So he has been doing video calls and doing sort of games and tours. And he has people who are experts in a particular area who will do talks and things and tell stories. And he's actually been sending out people food to taste, like cheeses and wines, so that everybody can join in and they can be together and they can have something to drink and have something to eat. So there are lots of different things that you can do with virtual tourism that can make it that bit more innovative, that bit more exciting, and it can be something more than just streaming a live stream tour. And you can actually bring this into the destination you're traveling to as well. So for example, you might visit a tourist attraction and perhaps there's a little museum or a little information zone at the attraction. And they could have, for example, digital reconstructions of what that tourist attraction may have looked like some years ago. And they can perhaps have some kind of games or virtual tours or something that you can actually do there virtually alongside and to support the physical travel. So there are lots of options here. And virtual tourism is not going anywhere. I think that there might be a bit of a lull as we start to physically travel again. But overall, it's not going anywhere. It's here to stay and it's going to grow. So this was when I was going to ask Bernard about Flyover Zone. So I think I've told you a bit about Flyover Zone. So they are an organisation where they essentially allow you to time travel and to go and see virtually some big tourist attractions around the world. Oh. I'm sorry. I don't know why I keep yawning this morning. So just having a look at their website, make sure I don't miss anything. Sorry, Emma. So they do offer some really great tours. They're the leaders in virtual tourism. So Flyover Zone is an acknowledged world leader in the emerging field of virtual tourism. They create cultural and heritage tours around sites that have, as I said, digital reconstructions. You can visit historical places such as Rome, Athens, Baalbek, just by turning on your phone, tablet, computer, or VR headset. So they have lots of different tours there. So they've got tours of Hadrian's Villa. They've got some historical games and chariot racing, which is good fun. Their Rome Reborn is perhaps the most well-known tours, and they've got a few tours in Rome. And then they've got a few bits that are coming soon as well. So I do recommend taking a look. If you are perhaps a teacher, whether you teach history or whether you teach travel and tourism or probably a range of other subjects would lend itself to this too, you might want to have a look at their website. They offer some great tours and you can get your students involved, and it's something interactive as well, because they actually have, it's not one of these stream tours. You guide yourself around the tourist attraction and you can click on different elements and get information. And it is very good, particularly I think for students to sort of have a wander around, explore themselves. So yeah, do have a look at the website. I've put the link there for you. And yeah, let me know your thoughts. So what are the benefits of virtual tourism? Well, there are lots of benefits. If it is a replacement for travel, it obviously helps the environment because we're not emitting those CO2 emissions by traveling via air or road or whatever means that might be. But also virtual tourism has a lot of benefits in that it can help to enhance your experience because you can see other elements of a tourist attraction as well. There are some great apps these days where you can sort of scan a QR code and it will give you more information. And there are lots of, it's getting early night tonight, I think. So there are, lots of apps and lots of organizations that are developing lots of things like this. And it's also a form of smart tourism, which is tourism that uses technology to make their operations more efficient. So there are lots of ways that the virtual tourism is being embedded within our tourism industry and the experience. It's not just having a tele tour on YouTube or Zoom or whatever that might be. So these benefits can be educational. It can open up the tourism industry in terms of accessibility to people who couldn't physically travel to a place, or to people who maybe couldn't afford to travel there. So it's opening up, it's making it more accessible, it's more environmentally friendly, and it can help you to better plan your trip as well. Because perhaps you might do a virtual tour and you learn, yes, I'd really like to visit that place, or no, actually that place isn't really of interest to me, I'll skip that. So that the sort of try before you buy can be really helpful too. And what is the future of virtual tourism? Well, I think I pretty much said that. There is a future, and I think that virtual tourism is going to be more and more prevalent and prominent within the tourism industry. So whether this is before you take your holiday, whether this is guided tours that are perhaps on YouTube, etc., whether this is by adding interactive elements to a physical tour, etc. So there are lots of ways that virtual tourism can be embraced. And I think if this pandemic has done anything, it has highlighted to us that we can leverage and use technology in many ways that can help to enhance an experience and to make it more environmentally friendly, to make it more cost effective, to make it more, reduce economic leakage and all these kinds of things. And virtual tourism can really be, it can really be embraced in many different ways. And I think that going forwards, we are going to see a lot more of this. We are going to see a lot more, we're going to see the use of technology a lot more. We're going to see a lot more examples of virtual tourism. And like I said before, it is not going to be a replacement for physical tourism as we have largely seen in the last year. That is not the future. The future is an all-encompassing tourism experience where virtual is just one element of the bigger picture. So I think that there will be a lot of jobs in the virtual tourism space going forwards, whether this is working in the IT sides of things, whether this is working in the sort of management and tourism management side of things. There will definitely be more opportunities in this area. And I think that when we teach travel and tourism, because obviously I have many years experience of teaching travel and tourism, and a lot of people, particularly at sort of school and college level, will be working to particular specifications or criteria that they need to teach. And oftentimes these are written some years back, and especially because of COVID, but even without that, things have changed quickly. And just look at where we were in the world 10 years ago, 20 years ago, things have changed remarkably. And virtual tourism is an example of the way that we are using technology more and more, and it is rapidly changing all of the time. So I think that perhaps a lot of travel and tourism curriculum won't always necessarily cover in depth the areas of tourism that are growing quickly, because these criteria and these specifications were written before it was perhaps growing so quickly. So I think that it's important that we keep up to date when we're teaching travel and tourism, and if you're working in the industry too. It's important that we keep up to date with this, and it's important that we teach our students these things, even if they're not formally being assessed because it's not part of the specification. I think that morally and ethically, we should be preparing them for the world that they are going to enter. And if virtual tourism is not on your syllabus, but we know that it's going to be a big part of travel and tourism, then you should, teach your students about that in some way or another. So I think that for anyone who's considering a career in virtual tourism, it's just kind of keeping an eye on how the industry is developing, how it's growing, and look at the different ways that virtual tourism is being developed. And then, I think just keep an eye on it and perhaps try and get some work experience, or perhaps work with some. There are a lot of startups who will be looking for people, and there aren't that many experts in this field at the moment. So it's a great time to perhaps jump on board, to learn, to get involved. And I think it's a very interesting area that is going to grow. So I hope I've explained that a little bit for you. I do have that article on virtual tourism that I've given a lot more thought to. So I do apologise that today's session wasn't quite as I had planned, but hopefully I've covered the areas in enough depth for you. And I will do, at some point, I will do a formal YouTube video where I stutter less and I'm a bit more organised, where I will talk about virtual tourism a little bit more. So next week we have Paul Rogers joining us. Paul is the founder of Planet Happiness, which is an organisation that embraces sustainable tourism and all the things that are kind of surrounding that in order to help make our planet a happier place, essentially. And he's going to tell us all about that and how they do that in their work. So I think that will be a really interesting talk. That is also going to be a morning talk. I am aware that I probably have a slightly different audience from usual right now because it's just gone 9:30 here in China in the morning. And usually I do the talks in the evening so that we can get the European audience. But I'm aware that they will be asleep, most likely right now. So Paul is based in Australia. So it will be another morning talk next week. But if you do miss the talks, they are all then added on to YouTube and searchable at any time, so you can rewatch them if you do want to. So as I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, I am at the moment making lots of new YouTube videos. So I've had great success with the website, and I've had lots of positive feedback that people have found the articles really helpful. Sorry, my daughter's come to say hello. And they found them really useful for their studies. So I have decided to essentially record videos about this. So I've started off with a back to basics series, which is I've used an animation company to make animations of videos. So far I've done the components of tourism or the structure of the tourism industry, and I've done the types of accommodation. Hopefully there's going to be one new video each week. I'm also working on some slightly more higher level and more academic videos, which will not be animations. They will be a combination of me explaining and of lots of hopefully fun and interesting videos. So the idea is to try and make learning, travel and tourism fun and interesting, and to keep people engaged and to help make our travel and tourism industry a better place, and to teach people about being responsible and good management techniques and that sort of stuff. So the YouTube channel is pretty new. I'm only just getting going, so any support is hugely appreciated. Please do subscribe, ask your students to subscribe. There will be new videos every week. At the moment, I'm working on the environmental impacts of tourism, so if that's an area that interests you, that will be coming soon. I've also got other social media, and you can see the links right there. So thank you very much for everyone who has listened today. I can see a few of you have commented, so I'll just say hello to everybody who is there. I'm sorry the session started a little bit late. I'm super unorganized today. So we've got Chitra, Brianna, Griparam. I'm so sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. Kevin, Adrian, Marshan, hello to you all, and thank you so much for your feedback. If anyone does have any comments, please do let me know, and I hope you have a great day for those of you who are in this part of the world, and good night to those of you who are in America.